Hello everyone, welcome to Study IQ English. Well, we know that the war in West Asia has no immediate end and therefore the strategic choke point, the narrow choke point near Iran and Oman, from where 30% of global crude and energy supply passes and reaches to other nations in Asia and South Asia, called the Strait of Hormuz, is also not going to open anytime soon. Iran has refused any immediate ceasefire with the US because the demands imposed on Iran are quite unrealistic. So therefore, Iran will continue its asymmetric war and saturation strategy. But what happens if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't open? Already US President Mr. Trump, who was for a very long time critical of India and China, Brazil and Mexico, and told these countries that do not buy Russian Ural oil, he himself has now allowed all these nations to import the Russian Ural oil, because there is no supply happening from the Gulf. So, is there an alternative? There are multiple countries who are now looking into a very dangerous prospect of energy lockdown. There is a deficiency of crude. There is a deficiency of oil. There is a deficiency of LPG, LNG. So what to do? Now, majority of the pressure has therefore come on the alternate strategic choke point called Panama Canal. What a paradox. As Hormuz is shut, it is Panama that is now working to the double of its normal capacity. What is Panama Canal? It's making news in a big way right now. On the map, you can see the location right here. This is a very familiar map for all our students who have been following current affairs with us here on Study IQ, because I have multiple times spoken about the Monroe Doctrine of North America, the Dundro Doctrine of Mr. Trump. We have spoken about all these Caribbean countries, and especially we saw this map, Latin American map, as we were talking about Venezuelan crisis. And yesterday we spoke about the Cuban crisis. We are talking about Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, the killing of drug cartel mafia El Mencho. Yes, so very familiar map. So now we are just a little more above South America, Latin America. We are looking at the country of Panama right here. This is exactly where the Panama Canal passes from. What does it connect? $1 million question for UPSC. It connects the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans together. A very, very important strategic shipping route which has the ability to reduce the total sea travel dramatically, and it carries about 2.5% of global trade. It is one of the most important, very, very important strategic artificial waterways in the world. We can compare this with the Suez Canal. Now, we have seen the map of Suez Canal as well. Remember how we often keep talking? How in Egypt, we have seen Suez Canal, we have mapped that entire route starting from the Mediterranean right up to the Red Sea, eventually to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait near Yemen. So do not forget that route either. So now coming back to Panama Canal, it is a very unique canal because it has a very unique system. It uses the lock system. Why? Because typically the canal is made in such a way that the middle part of the canal, named as the Gatun Lake, another important place in the news, it is at a very high elevation. So therefore, just like we use elevators and lifts, here the ships are elevated, they are taken to the Gatun Lake, and again they are put down so that they can flow to other part of the ocean. So that's the lock system that it's using to artificially lift the ships and then bring them down at the sea level. So Gatun Lake, the 26-meter high lake above the sea level, becomes very, very important here, okay? And it is very, very crucial for US right now. But many more countries also depend on that. In fact, shortly I will also explain you why is it a bone of contention between China and the US. Are they fighting over ownership? No. It's just about strategic control. So now coming back to Panama Canal, well, the construction started in 1881, as long back as that. Initially by France, it was completed by the US, and finally the control was transferred from US to Panama in 1999. There is a very crucial treaty also. Not so important for UPSC exam, but it's always good to keep it in mind. The Treaty of Torrijos-Carter, right here. Through this, Panama got the control of Panama Canal. It was long back in 2023 and 24 that a severe drought had happened. It was the worst kind of water shortage scarcity that hit the Panama Canal in history. And now Gatun Lake is important here because during this drought, During this shortage of water, the Gatun Lake experienced a very big fall in the level of water that it had, and therefore the authorities had to reduce the number of ships that were transitioning from this area. For example, say about 35 daily to 25, and that also caused a lot of problem because every time a strategic choke point is in problem, it will impact global supply chain. Now we are looking at the example of Strait of Hormuz. Just a while before, we had seen the blockage of Suez Canal when a ship got caught in the Suez Canal. All these are narrow choke points. We have seen the controversies regarding Strait of Malacca. And now, long back, the same thing, although climate-induced, had also happened in Panama Canal. Now, coming back to, see, we were talking about Suez Canal. So, right here is Suez Canal. Very good to remember the link right here. Okay. So, this is again a very important choke point. Now, coming back to why Panama Canal has become so important today? Because Hormuz is closed and there is no immediate opening of Hormuz. Hormuz is closed. That means the various energy producing countries, LPG, LNG producing countries like Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, they cannot transport any product. They cannot get involved in export of their products. Ships are avoiding the Suez Canal also because of the massive fighting and airstrikes that are going on in this area. Around the Red Sea as well, in the entire West Asian region. Remember the war that was only between US, Israel and Iran. A triangular war is now a pan-West Asian war. So many countries are already engaged in the war now. So nobody wants to take that risk. There is a possibility of attack on commercial vessels too. And Iran is also saying that I will charge a very high transit fee. Neither am I going to allow the passage to any ship whatsoever. So that means majority of ships that pass through Red Sea, Suez Canal are also in threat. Then the ships that used to travel through Persian Gulf, Hormuz, are again under problem. So what happens then? If all the strategic choke points are under danger, then Panama Canal is the only viable route most of the countries will use when it comes to LNG carriers, when it comes to oil or crude carriers, then Panama becomes the only choice in this case, okay? So what's happening right now? So Panama Canal is experiencing over traffic. It is running at full capacity. That's about 38 ships per day, and that's a lot. Now, more LNG, more liquefied natural gas ships are also using this route. At the same time, demand has consistently been increasing because the war in Iran seems to have no immediate end. Now, as we are covering this topic, it's also important to understand that why do China and US have a controversy over the Panama Canal? Is it about the ownership of the canal? No, not exactly. Well, because China and US tensions over the Panama Canal is basically about who controls what percentage of global trade route, because all these are strategic points. Now, China is already expanding its global trade influence through BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. Do not forget, we have discussed in one of our classes, in fact in many classes, how Kuwait has become the latest country to join the BRI of China. Yes, so China is expanding BRI infrastructure, and at the same time, Chinese companies are also investing in ports and logistics and infrastructure near the Panama Canal area. But this is causing a worry to US, who feels that it is the country that not only built the canal but also controlled it till 1999. Plus, it's very, very vital also for the US naval movement between the oceans. So therefore, the more Chinese infrastructure and Chinese footfall here, the more concerns for the US. So it's not about ownership per se. It's practically about controlling and monopolizing strategic choke points. And we know the strategy of China already because we have seen and studied about salami slicing, 9-dash line, grey zone controversy, as well as string of pearls policy. So that's the controversy. And suddenly today, as all the choke points including Hormuz or Suez Canal, perhaps tomorrow even Bab el-Mandeb, are coming under the influence of the war, the only viable choice is Panama Canal, and hence the traffic on Panama Canal is doubling day by day. So all these are important map-based things. So make sure you do not only remember all these points, but also you have the ability to relate all these points with the use of map. Okay. Now a quick practice question. Consider the following statements here. 1. The Panama Canal connects Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Second, Increased use of Panama Canal by LNG ship is linked to disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz and security concerns near Suez Canal. Third, the Panama Canal operates without any lock system because both the oceans are at the same elevation. So you must here remember which two oceans is it connecting. You must remember the Gatun Lake as well. Okay, so which of these statements are true? It's an easy question, provided the concept is clear to you. And now a quick reminder. You can scan this QR code and become a part of my Telegram channel where I keep you posted with various interesting, diverse UPSC facts. At the same time, all the initiatives we are taking here at StudyIQ. Plus, the Safalta Mahotsav sale, a very important reminder, it's a limited period offer. 27th March is when we are ending the Safalta Mahotsav sale. So please hurry up, grab your seat, book your slot. For all the UPSC courses, we are offering 60% off. And if you use my code SPLY, further maximum discount is available to you. So enroll today because this offer will end on 27 March. And in return, take a guarantee of selection in the UPSC exam. Thank you.